All right, all right, all right. Hey ho, let's go. Hello, my legendary friends. Thank you for joining us for a fantastic episode of Legends and Losers. If you're joining us for the first time, I want to say a big thank you, and you're going to love this show with Keith Teboul. And if you're a longtime viewer, listener, supporter, and you've been with us on our mission to help people design a legendary business and a legendary life, I want to thank you again for making us a smash hit show, for sharing the show, for telling your friends about the show, and for writing legendary reviews about the show. It really warms the cockles of our heart when you when you reach out. All right, today, do you ever want to be a professional athlete growing up? Have you ever wanted to design a legendary life? Have you ever wanted to be an amazing entrepreneur? Have you ever wanted to be acclaimed in your field for being a visionary, for being accomplished, and for making a giant difference? Well, that's who we have on the show. Our guest today, Keith Teboul, is an athlete, an entrepreneur, a legendary surfboard shaper. He's an incredible waterman, and he's a world-famous windsurfer. And, you could argue that Keith has done it all. I've known Keith for several years. I met him through some mutual friends. Shout out to Larry Kotke and Lorinda Kotke for introducing us to the amazing Keith and his wife, Lena. And they live on Maui. And Keith is a master surfboard shaper, and he's one of the founders and partners of KT Surfing, Quatro, and Goya windsurfing. Keith is known around the world for his incredible design work in the windsurfing category, and Quatro is moving incredibly successfully into the surfboard shaping category. He's passionate, of course, about surfing, windsurfing. He spends a lot of time in the water. If you want to catch Keith, he's probably surfing or windsurfing a wave in off Maui or somewhere else around the world. Windsurf magazine calls him a legendary shaper. And the inertia.com says that Keith Teboul is, quote, recognized as an accomplished surfer, windsurfer, and has been held in the highest regard as a shaper who is at the forefront of the surf industry. And now, our dialogue with the legendary Keith Teboul. Well, why do you feel different in the Marshall Islands than you do other places?
Well, I guess it's just the different waves that it offers. The fact that it's relatively close to home, so I don't have to travel 3 days to get there, which is amazing because 3 days is a pain in the butt. And,
closer for you.
Having a business.
Yeah. You just
having a
popped down
business
there,
too.
right? It's what, remind me how long the flight is from Maui?
It's 4.5 hours. Well, you fly to Oahu,
Fly to
half hour,
Oahu.
and then 4.5 hour flight. So it's really easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you can really time it around swells, right?
Oh, definitely. I look at swells and I know the flight, days, and I can plan it.
And you get to spend time with the man that Surfers Journal called the greatest surf explorer of all time, Martin Daly, the pirate.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. He actually came through Maui the other day and we had lunch. It was awesome.
How's the old pirate doing?
He's doing great. He's the business is doing relatively well, and he's I don't know, Red Bull, GoPro, all want to do TV shows with him and stuff. So he's doing well.
If anybody should have his own reality TV show, it's Martin Daly, the pirate.
Yeah, for sure. He doesn't hold back. That's for sure.
Yeah, you think he's got an opinion or two about people and places and.
That's what I love about him, though, because I'm so the opposite of him. So I think maybe I rub off on him a little bit and he rubs off on me or something. Do
you kind of chill him out or mellow him out a little bit?
I try, but I'm scared of him. For sure. He's intense.
He's a big barrel of a man, right?
Oh, he's just a big barrel. He's a big teddy bear for the most part,
Yeah.
But he's a sea pirate. He's a captain. So I think he's got this sort of level he wants to reach, or that he thinks he needs to be like as a sea pirate. So
what do you mean? What kind of level?
Running a ship, you've got to make sure that everything's tight. So, really he's worried about people and his guests and just the boat in general. So he runs a tight, hard ship, and things have to be done right and done on time. And, so it's a rough life.
Yeah, because he's in that service business, right? He wants to make sure every guest has a great time, and he really believes that at his core. I mean, having done several adventures with Martin Daly now, I see that he gives a shit about the experience you're having.
Oh, 100%. And it's so important. And when his guys aren't performing to their best, you know, he lets them know. And the safety of the people that are part of the crew and everything is really important to him. So I think he's seen too many things go wrong in different areas of the world that he's been, that he really doesn't want to have that stuff happen or be preemptive on it.
Well, and when you're out in the Marshall Islands, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're what, 16 to 18 hours away, depending on where you are, if something really heavy
Yeah, I
happens?
mean, it can be anywhere from 18 to 24. And then, I mean, there is a military base about 8 hours away. They could fly in. But yeah, it's a lot of work. Something happens, you know, you're on your own. You really
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
it's as remote a place as pretty much any, right?
yeah, pretty much. And, you know, nobody's going to come save you.
Well,
So you can save
there's
yourself.
nobody there. That's the whole
Yeah,
point, right? That's
that's the
one of
whole
the things I
point.
loved about the Marshall Islands. There's literally, other than of course the natives who live there, which there are very few of.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
nobody there.
oh, and that's what's, I guess, a part of the experience for myself is just that you're not worried about a boat coming around the corner or someone pulling up to surf. It's more about, you know, you and your crew having a good time, enjoying the waves, and just, you know, really having a true experience on your own.
And I mean, you have no idea, I'm guessing, how many surf trips you've been on in your life.
Oh, I don't. I mean, I could guess, but you know, for many years, I traveled the world windsurfing and doing travel stories, video and photograph stories, and
How long
you
were you
know that
traveling where you'd consider yourself a professional windsurfer or
I would say
wave sailing?
yeah, wave sailing, windsurfer. I did that for probably 20 years. You know,
Wow.
and in the meantime, I started developing my shaping career and my business. And so they kind of both went hand in hand. In the beginning, the shaping was kind of on the side, and the sponsors and all that were at the forefront. And then I think
And did you
luckily,
have the foresight back then when you were, a pro that one day you probably weren't going to be a professional athlete, and so you better start work on plan for Keith 2.0, or how did that evolution happen?
yeah, I think I've always worked in my life, and I didn't come from a lot. And I was a pretty successful windsurfer, but I wasn't making so much money that I could put money to the side. It really was, you know, money came in, I went on a trip, it was gone. It was kind of that cycle. So I knew from the beginning that I had to have something else. And I was never so successful that I could just rely on that.
You
And
mean being a professional wave sailing
sailor, yeah, I did.
was not the pathway to becoming Bill Gates?
Nope. It's a passion. I guess I feel fortunate because I get to do what I'm passionate about every day. And I was just telling my wife, Lena, this morning how I was stoked to go to work. You know, I'm happy to go to work every day. There's problems every day, but there's things that happen every day that are great as well. And so it's awesome. Fortunate.
When did it occur to you that, like, hey, I might be able to make a living wave sailing?
Um, you know, I moved to Maui in '87, and the first 2, 3 years I built houses, and then I worked at a surf shop. And I think, you know, as time went on, I got a few sponsors and made a little bit of money, and then I started the company that I have now with 4 friends, and we were doing okay. We weren't making any money, but we were doing something that we were passionate and
I
trying to
always
make
thought
a
that Quatro was because you're like, you really like a quad setup on your boards.
difference. Yeah.
So
Well, there's that too.
it wasn't a statement about how many fins you should have. It was four
No, no,
guys.
no. It was 4 guys.
Yeah.
And you know, we did that for about 10 years and never really went anywhere. We made good boards. We got a good reputation for that, but there was no money. There was too many of us, too many conflicting ideas. And the other
Inside the company, you mean?
inside the company, and the other shaper at the time, who's a friend of mine now and always has been, but he was pretty opinionated about how he wanted to see things. So at one point we basically said, look, this isn't going anywhere if we stay all together. And he had the choice to leave or take over, and he chose to leave, so we bought him out. And that's really when things started turning around, and we could actually put some energy into it and see that we're going somewhere, and that
And
everybody's kind of
where
on the
were
same
you in
page.
your career as a professional wave sailor when that period was happening for the business Quatro?
Well, I would say I'd probably be midway in the wave sailing career. And, you know, I was actually doing shapes for other companies. And I kind of continue that on just to keep the money flow and keeping it coming in. And so what?
So when you say shapes, you were coming up with designs for them that they would repeat over and over and over again?
Yeah. So I would come up with, say, a 3-board line that they could take and produce offshore. And it was, well, I made some good money. I had other sponsors other than my board company. So it was kind of a weird transition time where we weren't really ready to commit and let go of the money we were making from sponsors, yet we wanted this thing to kind of go. And then it all sort of happened naturally. And I was able to kind of move into the just doing our own born brand and building that from the base. And it was a pretty weird transition because I guess being a professional sailor, you learn to kind of work for yourself and your time. But I was never that good at it. And so when I moved into the business.
What do you mean? What were you not? I mean, you were one of the most legendary wave sailors on the planet. What part were you not good at? The sponsor part, or
the sponsor part? I wasn't good at the.
Oh, you mean the professional athlete wasn't very good on the business side? That's
no.
we have never heard that story before, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So were you sort of forced into being like an entrepreneur even back then as a wave sailor? Because I assume you had to at least be good at wrestling up sponsors.
Yeah, I don't think I was forced into being an entrepreneur. I just saw that this was an avenue that I could take and that I could see that there was potential, and I loved doing it. And then we actually bought another one of the partners out at that time and brought in a very good friend of mine. And so it was kind of a new start, new energy, and he was really passionate. And he had been going to business school. He was halfway through and he stopped going to school to start running the business. And so that was a point when that things really turned around and we were able to kind of work together and work towards a purpose and take chances and not know what the fuck we're doing at times and meet the right people and develop things and, make choices together. And it's been pretty amazing.
And so remind me, Keith, how old is Quatro today?
Quatro would probably be 20 years old.
Wow.
Maybe a little older. But again, I'd say it's probably the last 12 years that we actually, have been able to kind of give it some direction and have a better idea of what we're doing.
And some of that obviously was as you were backing out of your pro career. I'm sure you had more time to put into Quatro, right?
Yeah. And also, just deciding that you're going to launch a whole nother line of boards and working on the distributorship and, whatever comes along with that. But yeah, it's just, you got to start putting energy into this to pay the bills.
And was it hard to, in your mind, to no longer be a pro wave sailor?
No.
Because you hear so many successful athletes talk about that transition to, for lack of a better term, civilian life. Is very hard. But it didn't feel that way to you.
Well, I think, if I didn't have anything else going on, I think it'd be very difficult. It'd be a really hard transition. And I see it now because I sponsor a few really good surfers, and some of them are starting to get a little older, and I see them going through this now, and I'm just looking, what I've gone through and other athletes. I'm just like, I can see the signs on the wall, and you just want to tell them, dude, you got to get something going on, because there's more to life than that. And then two, you're going to need to do something. It's not going to last forever. So,
and why do you think that's so hard for so many athletes to make that, to A, realize what you just said, and B, get moving on with that second phase of life?
Well, I think as an athlete, you're really focused on one thing, unless you're an athlete like Kai Lenny that does a lot of things and is open to a lot of different experiences. A lot of athletes are really single-minded, and so they're really focused in on one thing, and to put energy towards something else while you're being so focused. I think there's a lot of laziness. And I think a lot of the kids from these generations that are starting to hit that point feel a bit entitled. And
you're not saying you think millennials are entitled now, are you, Keith?
Sure. You got to work for it, man. That's what it takes. You got to work your ass off and be creative. And
were you always a hustler as a kid?
Honestly, I'm pretty lazy, but I work hard.
You're one successful lazy mofo, that's for damn
Yeah,
sure.
I guess I'm always drawn towards things that have really interested me, and I've been able to have connections that kind of come along at the right times for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And when I work hard. I'm not lazy to work hard. I'm a little bit lazy to be disciplined about things. And so it's the, things that you want to, projects you want to do, you kind of put them to the side burner. It's
Well,
it's
and the other thing that's sort of interesting about you as a professional athlete is, if you contrast your experience to, say, for example, a football player, I don't know, but a lot of football players, pro football players, when they retire, I'm assuming most of them don't play a lot of football.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
if they do play football, they don't play it at an elite level.
Yeah,
And you continue to surf and wave sail and windsurf and all of the kite surf and all of the. I mean, you are the living embodiment of a
yeah,
waterman.
yeah.
And I mean,
I think
so
I think
how often in a typical week are you in the water on some kind of a board?
every day,
You
every
surf or
or
you sail?
windsurf every day, unless my day goes long and someone comes in, I need to do something, or there's no conditions. But for me, it's always been super important. And I think going back to the point you were saying about, well, I think I'm just fortunate, and it's kind of legendary that I get to do, what I'm passionate about. And it's important that I'm in the water, and it's important that I'm testing and trying stuff. And because that just comes back into what I make. And I think, again, I'm fortunate to come from a professional sort of aspect of sailing and making money into being creative with making boards and shaping. And that comes back into what I love to do. And so I was able to kind of continue that. And, I've been successful as a windsurf shaper, and as a surfboard shaper now I'm getting a bit more of a name, and that makes me happy. I like making boards for people and feeling things and making them happy.
You
And
are a very tactile guy, right? You like the feel of a board. You like the feel of your feet
100%.
on a board,
Yeah.
how the sail feels in your hand.
100%. I'm a much more feel person than a look person. That's how I understand how something works. Is I need to go out and try it, and then try something else right next to it, and then go back and forth and back and forth. And that's really how I understand what works for me. And then
Would you call yourself a tinkerer in that way?
I think I'm fortunate because I get to tinker. And my company allows me to make boards as much as I want, because my partners realize that that's where I get my creativity, is from trying stuff and just being creative and doing that day to day. Yeah. Every day I wake up just thankful that I get to do it.
And do you like dream about surfboard designs and shit? Or
Occasionally I will dream, but a lot of times I come up with new ideas when I'm, say, riding my mountain bike, and I'm just, repetitive thinking, and I'll come up with ideas. I'm like, oh, wow, I should try that. And things come to me like that when I'm really not specifically thinking about boards. I'll start thinking about things and it'll come to me. And then a lot of stuff comes to me from, say, I work with Kai Lenny a lot right now on all the foil stuff. So I'm making all his prone, like surfboard foil boards and some stand-up foil
and
boards
can
for
you
him
just
now.
unpack for a second what
Yeah.
a foil is?
A foil is a wing that's underwater that gives you lift. And so basically you use a swell and get yourself going, and then the foil lifts you.
What
And so you're,
do you have to get towed in on a foil, or
no, not at
because
all.
okay, so how do you get into the wave?
You need a swell. You paddle with a stand up. So you use a paddle, and
Yeah.
you paddle yourself onto the swell. Once the foil is up and being pushed by a swell, it takes very little energy for it to keep going.
And what happens to the paddleboard after you?
Well, you're standing on it. So the foil is
And
attached
the
to,
foil is attached to
is
the
on,
paddle and attached
yeah,
to the board,
it's underwater,
and it's
and
up in the
it's
air.
lifting in the water, and you're above above the water with your board, but there's a shaft that goes to the water underneath and floats you around. It's like you're flying on water.
And
It's not,
how big is the board that you? It's like a a typical stand-up paddleboard
no,
you use to get into the wave, or
in general, a foil stand-up or surfboard is much smaller. You just need the volume to float, and a board that paddles quickly. And then so you paddle, like, give it 3-4 paddles, and then the swell gets you up and going, and then
you
you
should
can,
get in.
yeah. And basically he's gone 50 miles on ocean swells without going down. He got himself
Holy.
up. Yeah, he just
Is
went
that,
through all the
did you
islands.
guys like make sure that's in the Guinness Book of World Records? I mean,
He's working on that. He's filming it all, and it's pretty cool to be part of
wow.
those kind of things, because
And
he's very creative.
is that the forefront of surf technology right now, you
I don't
think?
think it's the forefront of where surfing's going to go. It's just another aspect of surfing and gliding on swells that could become part of something that people do. It's not
And
easy.
describe for me, as somebody who has not done it, what it's like to stand up on one of these.
Well, basically, I haven't done the stand-up part, so I can't give you that. I can give you the prone surfing.
Yeah.
So you're paddling the board. It paddles quicker because the wing creates lift right away. So any energy you're putting in kind of gets you going at a slow speed quick. And the board is very stable because there's a wing under the water that's not allowing the board to move. So basically, you paddle on a swell,
Yeah.
and the board wants to lift up very quickly. And
Like
so,
the nose of the
yeah,
board,
the
like,
nose lifts up. So basically, you push on the back and the nose goes up. You push forward and it goes down. So basically, you're having to have a very kind of squatted stance to stay neutral in one effect. So
like a
basically,
sort of a Spider-Man-y squat.
exactly a Spider-Man-y squat. And then once you're up, you use the swell to kind of generate yourself to go down the line. And so Kai can ride waves, cut back, and then he can cut out of the wave, and he can actually pump the foil. So he can pump once he's going
Yeah.
out to the next wave and get back on it.
You got to be kidding me.
No, you go online and check it out. It's nuts.
I did not realize that he could have, you guys could create so much momentum that you could do the pump that we, surfers do to try to make a section or something and get the wave behind it in the set.
It's amazing,
And that's how he stays on these continuous swells.
Yeah. Well, what I'm talking about is actually between the islands. He just did a crossing. And so he's going with wind and swell. He's going the direction of the swell.
Yeah.
So he gets up on a swell, and then he just goes from swell to swell. It's not.
And there's no sail. He's just on a foil board.
He's just on a foil board. So he can, if let's say he's losing one swell, he just gives it a couple pumps and then gets to the next one and turns. And, you glide and turn and follow the swell. It's amazing.
And so the conditions have to be right. There has to be enough swell in the direction he wants to go.
Well, exactly. There's parameters, but it's cool. It's a whole nother level. And you see these guys and it's like they're floating on the water. It's pretty cool. So
unbelievable.
Yeah. And anyway, getting back to it, it's like working with people like that or my riders, I get a lot of feedback, and it's pretty cool to be, I get ideas and feedback from that, and then it sparks ideas in me, and it's just an ongoing evolution of design.
Yeah. Do you have a sort of sports a hero, a water sports hero?
A water sports hero.
Yeah.
I have a lot of my passion is surfing, and I definitely look to people like Kelly Slater and Joel Parkinson and some of these top surfers, and I just really like seeing their styles and what they've created and how good of surfers they are, and I aspire to that, and then I love the other people like, say, Kai Lenny, because he's a very open person and he's willing to try different things, and he's changing the minds of surfers that can, I think, in general, be pretty close-minded about things.
How old is he now?
He's 25.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So, he windsurfs, he surfs, he kites. He's an amazing big wave surfer. He's an amazing stand-up surfer. And it's cool because he's breaching the gap between all these sports, and sponsors like Hurley see the value of working with someone like him because he is crossing over into this whole world. So it's cool because as windsurfers, I think we've been pretty, you kind of not look down on, but it's not as cool as surfing or this. So
although
it's
I don't
know,
I've seen some pretty amazing video of you windsurfing, and it's holy.
It's an amazing sport. And now I looked at my team riders and I'm just super impressed at what they're doing with these boards that I've created with them. And that's amazing.
But it does seem to me that there is a widening appreciation, Keith, of athletes who are more broad than just one, just a surfer or just a sailor or something like that. Is that, am I right that that's happening now?
Yeah, I'd say definitely, because I think a lot of these athletes are seeing that there's other things that you can do that are valuable to their sponsorship or whatever. So that opens it up. And then sometimes it's just a matter of these guys that are skiers or snowboarders that love to surf during the summer. And so they, there is an appreciation for it, or mountain biking or whatever. So yeah, definitely. All the sports are sort of crossing over. It's great.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of, do you know Jeff Denham?
Oh, the name. No, the name. Why do I know that? Why do I know that name?
We are getting some horrible shit going on your end.
Oh yeah, can you hear me now?
It's like a Darth Vader-y cracking. Something's going off.
Not good. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. I'm not sure what you did there.
Okay.
It almost felt like maybe the connection was falling out or something like that.
Maybe that was what it was.
Yeah, I don't know. It reminds me. So this conversation reminds me of something Martin Daly said to me on a trip in the Marshall Islands. He was talking about how some folks who come out and they want pristine surf, and it's, of course, it's not always that way. And he said, you shouldn't give a shit about the conditions or your equipment. Just get in the water and have fun.
100%.
And, yeah, of course, I'm nowhere near the athlete that you are. But one of the things I've always been surprised at with surfers is how many surfers don't scuba dive.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was a diver before I was a surfer. And I think it's really cool to go dive the reefs you're surfing.
100%. You get an idea of what's going on under there.
Well, first of all, they're beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. And it's an amazing, scuba diving is like I don't know, just an incredible experience. And then, yeah, you're right. Like I can remember there's a wave that I love in Fiji, and the behavior of this wave changes a lot when there's more swell. Like it just the shape of it is different and so forth and so on. And I often wondered why. Like, and it jacks up like crazy when there's swell, and much less so when there's less swell. But in a way that wouldn't, at least for me, at my level of understanding, I wouldn't have expected it to. Let me say it that way. So, but the first time I went diving on it, it's like, oh, well, that makes sense. There's like all this sand,
yeah,
and then there's this giant, I don't know, it probably was about a 70-foot wall, and then that's where the wave is. And so it's like, okay, so no kidding, this thing, once there's some swell in the water, really changes its behavior because the water just runs out of space very quickly, and when there's a lot of water.
Boom. Yeah. Totally makes sense.
But anyway, I've always find it curious that if you're a surfer, wouldn't you want to scuba dive? Don't you want to go under the water and see what's going on?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm sure there's a fair few that do. But again, I think surfers in general are pretty one-minded. They want to surf. I mean, I get it.
And so why is it that you're different in that regard, Keith? I mean, you are truly an all-around waterman.
I think I've been fortunate just growing up all over the world. I grew up in Madagascar. I was born there. And then I moved to the Caribbean a little bit. And so I've met a lot of different people in my life. And I also got a chance to do a lot of traveling through windsurfing. And I had some European sponsors. And so they've always been a bit more open about doing other things. And I think actually, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more like Martin Daly was saying, just here to have fun and ride whatever you want, and getting less attached to those kind of things and just more about having a good time and enjoying what you're. But then again, I come from a really technical side of things because I'm a shaper designer. So I'm always trying to learn something and push things. But sometimes I just need to let go and try something I've never tried before. And actually, I've learned almost more that way. So I think just staying open-minded is super important.
Interesting. The other thing I'm curious about with you is you hear stories of people who have a passion for something. Maybe they're a great chef, or they love art, or whatever their thing is. And so if they're a chef, they open a restaurant, and if they love art, maybe they open a gallery or something along those lines, or a studio of some sort. And then you talk to them a couple years in, and you hear these stories of, I took this passion, my hobby, this thing that I love, and I turned it into a job and or a company, and now I fucking hate it. Like they wrecked their thing by trying to make a living out of it. And so how is it, you're so pure, like in that sense, right? Like you're just like a kid. And yet, you have a very serious business with employees and distribution around the world, and an incredibly well-known brand and so forth and so on. And you're an inventor and a designer, and you spend all this time in the water. And so I guess my question is, how have you taken this thing that you love and have it be so many different vectors, if you will, in your life, and yet still have the passion for being in the water that I imagine you might have had as a kid?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm fortunate because I was able to grow this business with good partners. And I think we all realized kind of what our strengths and weaknesses were. And so it's allowed me to be a little bit more on the creative and the R&D side of things. I mean, I deal with day-to-day stuff for sure. And there's times when things are really difficult. And, I personally went bankrupt like 15 years ago, and the business almost went down, and we had to fire people. So, we've gone through some hard times, but I haven't had to deal with the day-to-day financial stuff as much because we realize that that's not my strong point, and that my partner is much better at that. And that's kind of when we made the decision in the beginning, that's kind of where he focused his energy. And so I'm fortunate that way because it's allowed me to be a little bit more free and artistic. And I think that that's really kept the fires burning, to not have to deal with the financial planning as much and all that, because that's not my strong point. My strong point is being creative, bringing the new designs to market, helping to make the decisions day to day, but not having to be focused on it all the time. So I'm lucky that way.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky that way.
It's interesting. And, I got to ask you, I mean, how do things like going bankrupt 15 years ago, how does that contribute, that kind of a loss contribute to you being, you personally, as well as the company being where you are today?
I think for me, it was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me because it allowed me mentally to let go of all the stress that I had related with this money that I owed. And so I was able to kind of start fresh, and there was a lot of pressure, credit cards and all this. It was my own doing. I don't blame it on anybody but myself. But again, it allowed me to kind of restart and start from fresh. And at the time I was going through it, the business was struggling as well. So it was really challenging times. But, once we were through that and started.
How long would you say you were going through that really hard time, both personally and in the business?
I'd say for the business, it was a couple of years. And for the personally, it was probably 4 or 5 years. I wish I would have.
That's a long time in somebody, half a
time.
decade is no joke, right?
No.
How are you feeling for those 4 or 5 years?
It still affects me at night. I'll wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes with the same kind of feeling. I don't know why.
What's that feeling?
It's a feeling of dread. It's a feeling of like, there's nothing I can do. I'm so stressed out. I don't know what to do. And I think a lot of it came from feeling responsible that I had put myself in this position and feeling responsible to pay back the people.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. To pay back the people that, I had borrowed this money from or whatever. And then that kind of social feeling of being, feeling responsible, and that I needed to take care of this. And I tried for a long, long time, and I just couldn't do it. And so finally I was like, okay, I have to do this. And it was the best thing I could have done. It really allowed me to start from scratch and make better choices about my finances.
And how different have you been since you made that tough decision?
Very different.
In what kind of ways, Keith?
Well, the way I spend my money and the choices I make about trips I make or what I do. And I don't put myself too far out there. And, it's the same in the business. We don't put ourselves too far out there. And we were lucky because I think we weren't so far in that we couldn't get ourselves out. And it was kind of, when we had those 2 years that were really hard was at a time when the market crashed and all that.
Yeah.
And basically we made it through, and we figured, hey, if we can make it through these times, we can make it.
Yeah.
So, and we did, and we had to let people go, and it's really hard. You know, they're friends or people you make friends with, and you're like, well, in order to save my business, I'm sorry, but I have to let you go. And it's tough. It's not fun. You know, I don't
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting that, and obviously Legends and Losers is our name. We just learn so much more from those losses.
100%. It's the losses that really bring you to, I think, appreciate the wins. And even the wins, you know, it's a pretty even keel for me, the losses and the wins. I love the wins, and it's nice, but it's like, okay, what's next? You know, it's like, what's gonna bring me to the next level and what I want to keep doing. And
You've always struck me as a fairly even keel kind of a guy.
definitely, I'm
Yeah.
definitely even keeled.
Yeah.
That makes me feel much better than being super high or super low. I can't handle that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely more that way, and I was a lot more that way as a younger person. And you definitely find that kind of evening things out is not that you shouldn't be real high when things are high and fun and all that, and enjoy the moments and all those good things.
Well,
But
I think so too. I'm trying to actually now enjoy the moments that you're high. I mean, it's not going to change the world, but it's like, oh wow, okay. It kind of sit and look at it and say, wow, I really appreciate that I've gotten to this point. You
and the
know?
other thing I'm sort of dying to ask you, I've been dying to ask you this for a long time, is
Yeah.
Um, I remember first meeting you very distinctly, and I remember our dear friend Ben sort of explaining to me who the fuck you were, because of course I
Yeah.
was not in the wave sailing world. And I guess my question is, how is it you have stayed so humble? Because I had to be told who you are, so to speak, and there was nothing about you that was, you know, egotistical or arrogant and I can remember the first time I went surfing with you and I thought, oh fuck, you know, I am a donkey, and so you're going to see that I'm a donkey and you're going to treat me like I'm a donkey and all that stuff. And you were exactly the opposite, and you were yelling at me on waves, and when we got back to my place, and and when I surfed with you in Hawaii, you kind of looked out for me and
Yeah.
made sure I was in the right spot and all those things. You were sort of the opposite of what in your world, you're a famous guy and a celebrity in your world. And yet you're the opposite of all of that in my experiences with you. Where does that come from, Keith?
Again, I think it comes a lot from the travel that I've done and just realizing that there's a lot of different kinds of people out there, and there's a lot of very successful people. And for me, the importance in what I do and that I've reached this level, it's about making other people happy. I
Hmm.
like making other people happy. That makes me happy. And I don't like to self promote very much. It's not important to me. It doesn't make me feel better about myself at all. And there's times that I'm proud
Sure,
of
of course.
things, and it's awesome, but it doesn't make me happy. I'm kind of the opposite of that. I don't, I think maybe I need to do a little bit more of it on a marketing side of things, but I really don't like it. And maybe it's just a fear of being judged too much, and that I won't live up to a certain expectation. So I
But
keep
you're a living legend.
yeah, in
I
my
mean,
own
you
mind.
are. No, but in
Thanks.
your world, you are. I mean,
Yeah,
for fuck's
it's
sakes, you are.
true.
When I run into people who are in or around your world, and I tell them that we're buddies, and
Yeah.
I was privileged to be at your wedding and all that kind of stuff, people are like, Keith, like it's like a
Yeah.
big deal, right?
I think it's always been important for me too to stay really approachable by people, and so because I think people want to be a part of something, and I'm here to provide that. You can be a part of what we do because that's how we've done well. Is people
do,
feel
do you
like they
remember
can
the
be
first time somebody asked you for your autograph?
part. I don't remember the first time.
Yeah.
I think the first couple of times it was my sponsors sort of pushing me to sign autographs when I really wasn't somebody who was very known. I was never comfortable with it. And I'm happy to sign a board for someone or sign something because I know it means a lot to them. To
Yeah.
me, like whatever. But I know it makes somebody else happy. And if that makes them happy, I'm awesome. Shoots, I'll do it. It's great. Thanks. You think that it's so important to have my signature because it makes you feel better? That's awesome. It is. It's great. You know?
But it clearly doesn't mean that much to you.
It really doesn't at
Yeah.
all. You
Yeah.
know, hey, but I feel fortunate that I've ended up in this position, and I want to appreciate it every day. And so I
Yeah.
think I need to treat it with respect.
Yeah, it's interesting. We recently had Bruce Buffer, who is the veteran voice of the Octagon for the UFC, and
Oh, wow, cool.
yeah, and he was so cool to come on, Legends and Losers, and Colin and I understood, like, look, Bruce is doing us a favor. Like, he does not need to come
Yeah,
on our show, right?
that's
That
awesome.
was very, very clear. And, we asked him about the same thing because his reputation, I know enough people in and around the UFC and fighters and so forth to know that his reputation is your reputation in this regard. And, it was amazing.
So true.
He said a very similar thing about, not forgetting where he came from. And it doesn't feel like that long ago to him that nobody was at a UFC event. Nobody cared about the fighters, let alone him. And so the fact that people get stoked to see him or take a selfie with them or take the photo with them. And he said, as long as they don't chase me into the bathroom.
Yeah, exactly. Then it gets a little out of hand.
When a man is holding his penis, you should just leave him. There'll be no selfies or autographs,
Just
please.
walk away. No,
And
and I think in our industry too, it's a pretty small industry, and it's not a growing industry as far as on the windsurfing side of things. So I think it's important to take care of everyone that you deal with in this industry, because they're the people that are buying your product, and it's important that they feel that you're providing a good board, a good service, a good experience. And I think that's a big reason why we've done well, is just that personal connection with people. And we live what we do every day.
yeah. Well, and especially when you're making custom boards, right? I know
Yes.
there's two shapers I've worked with for the last few years, and both of them are legendary shapers. And one of them here in Santa Cruz, Doug Hout, and
Yeah,
he's,
I know Doug. Yeah. I've
and
met him a couple times. He's great.
isn't he incredible?
Yeah, he's awesome.
And I remember first meeting him, and it was like, it was like meeting a rock star. It's like, meeting Eddie Van Halen or something. And
Yeah.
it's like, but Eddie's going to make me a guitar.
Like,
Holy
yes.
shit.
That's awesome.
Now, I'm also curious. You're a dad, and for a long time you were a single dad.
Yeah.
And so how does and I know you're a legendary dad.
No, thanks.
No, I know you are.
Actually, my daughter's pregnant, so I'm going to be a grandpa.
Yeah!
I know. I'm pretty stoked.
Well, it's a bummer that she's only 11, though. Don't you think that's a little early? No,
a little early. Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
kidding. How old is she?
She's 24.
Yeah. And
Young,
when's she due?
She's due in July, so it's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes Lena a grandma, right?
Yeah, don't say that. Doesn't want to hear that.
I'll start calling her grandma. It'll be great.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah, it was a really cool experience. I got with her mom when Cheyenne was 1, so I've been dad since she's 1, and it's been a really cool experience. I think that her not being my physical child is no different, but it took a little bit of the responsibility off, because I think her mom just took on a little bit extra because that was her child from the beginning. But she is my daughter, so that there's a little bit of a different dynamic there. But I think that I've become closer now with her than I ever have.
And it's fascinating to me that you would, in spite of your breakup with her mom, and in spite of the fact that you're not her biological dad, that I never saw any evidence of any of that, like in terms of your relationship or your desire to want to be with her or be her dad or any of that stuff.
No, not at all. I think I was there in all those growing up years, and it was part of her life, and that's my responsibility. She's my responsibility. It's like I took that on. So you take it on, you got to follow through till the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super important.
It's awesome. And I think you're an inspiring dad for those reasons and others.
Well, thank you.
No, you're unbelievable. And the other thing I at least got to touch on is, we all get invited to weddings.
Yeah.
And, forget whether or not the experience was great, because we knew the experience was going to be great, right? Because, of course, Lena's a wedding planner.
Yeah. Exactly.
But so we knew that would be great, and it absolutely was. But the other thing, the most important thing was we've all been to weddings where you sort of wonder a little bit about the couple,
Yeah.
or in some cases you wonder a lot about the couple. But when you go to a wedding and you just know this is a legendary couple, that they're good people,
Yeah.
and they really love the shit out of each other. You know, you guys are such an inspiring couple. You know, can you share a little bit about your relationship with Lena?
Yeah, we have a really similar background. We both grew up with French influence, so we both speak French. So I think there's that connection, which makes us very similar in that way.
And there aren't a lot of native-born Hawaiian folks who also are fluent in
French.
français. Vous parlez un petit peu de français.
Mais bien sûr.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So we have the Hawaii connection, we have the French connection, and so we're very comfortable around each other in that way.
Do you speak French to each other at all?
Oh yeah, we do all the time.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, probably not as much as we should, but yeah, we do all the time. And it's not to talk about other people.
It's le gars, les bas, il est terrible.
Exactly. So we've got that in common. And then I think too, we both have successful businesses, and we're both busy working on those and being creative. And I think that we both want to put the time into our businesses. And
yeah, how's that? I mean, you're both entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You both have partners as well.
Yeah.
And you both work crazy hours. And to your point, you're both in very creative industries, right? Lena and Jane and their team are always trying to come up with new, amazing experiences for weddings and so forth in their business. And so how do you make all that work?
Well, I think that, the week is really about work, and the weekends we try and take and spend a lot of time together. And we're both free to kind of go do stuff when we want, as long as we're organizing our time. So we try and do special things together as well. And we're just in New Zealand for 2 weeks for our honeymoon. So we travel a lot, and in those times we really spend that time together. And
does she come on surf trips with you often?
She comes on some surf trips. I try and work it so she can come for a week, and then, I think more than anything, it's been nice because we're both kind of financially good on our own.
Yeah.
And, it's been kind of fun bringing that together.
Yeah.
And start planning on trying to buy some land and buy a house and just do that. And so we're kind of getting into those stages. It's not like we're killing it, but we can do some stuff, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be creative that way.
Yeah. Well, and you guys seem to have such a great partnership.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I think she's learning a lot from me and how mellow I am, and I'm learning.
You mean she's a little more high strung than you are?
She's more high strung and likes to get out and do stuff and be more social, and so I've been able to really kind of suck off of her. She pushes me to do stuff that normally I wouldn't take the time to do, and as I get older, I realize that time is shorter and shorter, and I want to enjoy life to the fullest. So it's important to take the time to do it.
So when she pushes you into social situations and takes you to things that you might not otherwise go, you're a little bit more of a willing victim.
Just a little bit. No, I've learned over the years now that it's like most of the time she's right. You're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be fun, and I'm like, okay, let's do this.
So. I mean, obviously, I don't know what it's like to be a woman, but as a guy, at least I've learned, if you are lucky enough to be married to an extraordinary woman, it's
that's for sure.
I sure think so.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to just say, yes, baby. I'm not going to argue with babe at all.
No, it's true. You find that it's better just to, let's just do this. Let's go do that or get this done or whatever. So yeah, you're right.
And as you look forward, whether it's with your, water sports, whether it's with Quatro, the business, becoming a grandfather, your relationship with Lena, what are the things that you're excited about in the future?
I think I'm excited about, I've been kind of going through this lately about how I see the business and all. And I've hired a kid that works with me, and he runs my machine. So he's my new minion, and it's great. I really want to
get him a t-shirt or something.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
Minion shaper. So, and he's amazing. So I I see myself working more with the team, working with people that I'm being super creative with, and then having him sort of taking care of the day-to-day stuff, being able to travel
Yep.
more and be more part of the distributorship and meeting with distributors and kind of pushing sales a little bit more.
Because your business is growing in Europe a lot right now, isn't it?
Yeah, one of my business partner lives in Tarifa in Spain, and
Sounds horrible.
it's horrible. No, he's good, and he's really brought the business to another level. That move to Spain had doubled our business because he did that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been an amazing step for him to actually have the balls to just go do it. It's like, I'm going to move to Spain and do our distributorship, and then it's just evolved from there. So fortunate with that move. And then my other partner lives in San Diego now, so he's starting to develop the stand-up and the surf market in San Diego, and then kind of capture all the windsurfing market in the US if we can. So it's kind of what we're doing.
So
And
that's the high level evil plan to take over the world.
pretty much. And I want to travel more and be creative with my boards more and develop that and develop the surfing side of things more.
And where do you want to travel more? Surf destinations or non-surf? What's non-surf destinations? What's the?
I want to do a bit of both. I get a lot of inspiration when I go wine tasting and eating great food. And then, I like to incorporate going to New Zealand and doing that, and then surfing and meeting different people and seeing different surf cultures and kind of getting an idea of what's going on around the world and bringing that.
We have one of the most important surf cultures in the world here in Santa Cruz, and you're really not spending enough time here.
Don't worry, I'm coming over soon enough.
Oh, good. I hope so.
Sure.
We have a place for you to stay.
Yeah. Stoked.
Yeah.
Stoked.
Well, and as you sort of think about, past, present, and future, what would you share with other people if they wanted to emulate both the learnings from the losses as well as the successes that you've had? And most importantly, what I love about you and Lena, for that matter, is you guys have proactively at the same time designed a life, and in this case, two businesses as one thing together.
Yeah.
Right. So this concept of legendary business, legendary life, and you've both done it in a co-creative way.
Yeah.
And so, what insight would you have about how do I design a legendary life and a legendary business, and how do I do that with my spouse?
That's a good question. Well, I guess, in the beginning, it's just hard work. For me, at least, it was a lot of hard work. And I think when you're younger, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wasn't focused in on like, this is what I'm going to do, whereas some people really are. And so for me, it was really just an evolution of opportunities that came to me that I was able to see and sort of take advantage of, not in a bad way, but just kind of move in that direction. Moving to Maui, I was going to move to Santa Cruz actually and go to community college. I was a horrible student. I barely made it out of high school. I just didn't.
Are you dyslexic by any chance?
I'm not dyslexic you, but
you were just a shitty student. At least I had an excuse.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't, the focus, the discipline of school.
Do you think maybe are you a little ADD, or you're just a different cat?
I think I'm just a different cat. I'm drawn towards those things that make me happy. Surfing, just being a little bit more like that. And
how many times in your life did somebody say to you, you're not going to be able to make a living playing in the water or surfing or,
I'm so fortunate. My mom was nothing but supportive. She's amazing. And she supported me from the beginning. And I don't know how she did it, because there's times like, I had no direction, but she just sort of helped me and financially helped me. And thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
No, she really was, I think, instrumental in sort of helping me just let things unfold. So I moved to Maui. Well, I was going to move to Santa Cruz.
Yep.
Right before that, I met a guy in Baja who was a windsurfer who offered me a job in Maui. And I'm like, okay, screw it. I'm going to Maui. I didn't know anybody except him. I called him when I got here, and I built houses for a year. And I realized that I liked it. I liked the creativity of it, but I didn't like the physicalness of it. So then I met someone who offered me a job at High Tech. I started working there, and then I started doing the buying for High Tech. And then at that point, I made my friends that we started the business with, and I started getting a few sponsors. And so it just sort of all evolved. And when I look back, it just seems like it was all just sort of meant to be. Again, you got to make the choices. You got to see the opportunities. And all those things led me to going bankrupt too. So it's not like I made all the best choices, but it was a choice that allowed me to see my mistakes and what I created for myself, and make that change. And then realize that I didn't really like feeling responsible to sponsors and having to be certain way or do certain things. And so I think having that feeling just sort of evolved that stuff out and brought in more the shaping and the creative. And I've always liked to work with my hands, and I don't consider myself like an amazing technical shaper. I consider myself more like what would you call it? Like, in order to get the rail right, I have to play with it a lot.
Right.
Like I foil a lot. I just kind of go more for feel. And so that's why.
In that way, do you think you're more of a, if you will, a painter than maybe, I don't know, an architect or a drafts person or something like that?
100%.
Yeah.
Much more like that. And I've always.
So if I say to you, hey, Keith, make me 2 boards that are exactly the same.
No, it's not going to happen. I mean, they'll be generally the same because the computer, I have computer shaping programs and I have machines. And that's why I like machines and computers, because it takes the technical side away from what I have to do. And then I can put my creativity into how the board's going to feel and work and look. That's the creative part for me. And that's what I like. I like the technical part to be taken care of by something that's much better than me at it, a machine. But I like that creative touch. It's important.
It's a similar thing you've done in your business with your partners, right? You focus on the areas that you're passionate about and have real skills about, and you don't worry about the day-to-day accounts receivable.
100%. And at one point there was something online where you could look at your personalities when you were born and all this. And so we did it for each partner, and it was true to life. It was really true about where each person excelled and where they didn't excel. And I'm not a super organized person.
You and me both, brother.
I'm a little bit messy at times, but I like to clean up at times too. So, we really realized where we could push each other, things we had to work on, and kind of allow that freedom. And as we've become more successful, we can allow it a little bit more and take more chances. And so it's been great for me. It's been a perfect opportunity, and I realize it more and more every day.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah. It's amazing.
Isn't it amazing how you appreciate what you've achieved, and that stuff, you start to soak in it more and more as you get a little bit older?
Yeah, I think it's important because, it's important to enjoy your day and what you're doing and not be so focused on, getting it done but just enjoy the day-to-day of it all.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can forget about that, but it's important for me more and more.
Yeah. And is there anything else we should touch on before we land this? I
don't know. I just feel, thanks for having me on the show. I hope I live up to all your expectations or whatever, but
isn't that funny? It's funny. Almost everybody who comes on our show says that either before or after. And it's just amazing to me that, and I love all of our humanity, right? That some of the most legendary people in their fields in the world have already been on Legends and Losers. And yet almost everybody says what you just said. And the fact that you would say it is ridiculous to me, but isn't that?
Well, I think it's important that we all share our humanity and are human with people. It's just what we're about. I mean, it's what makes life fun. I'm realizing more and more, that's why I'm being more social, or, I like interacting with people for the most part, and at times, but it's important, it kind of gives you a reference of where you're at.
Well, and the interesting thing too to me about human beings and our need for relationships, if you look at any of the science research on happiness, essentially what you learn is there's no such thing as a lonely centenarian, right? Of course there's many factors, but a huge factor in how long a life you live is the quality of your relationships. And the other one that blows me away, if you take a step back and you say, what is the worst punishment in our world that we give somebody? It's solitary confinement.
Yeah.
You lock somebody in a room by themselves for an elongated period of time, and that's the worst thing that we know how to do to somebody.
Yeah. That's
You know,
pretty
so
crazy.
no shit, the opposite of that makes us feel good.
Yeah. Totally. Just those true human connections.
And
For
so,
sure.
where's your next surf trip, or do you have a plan?
I'm going to Europe in May for a distributor meeting, and then Martin Daly invited me to his 60th birthday out in Memento Wise.
Oh my God, how
So
outrageous.
I'm
When is
trying to
that?
make it's in May. He's going to be out there for the whole month of May. I can't go the whole month, but I'm trying to like free up. My schedule's free. I'm more concerned about my employees and keeping them working, for that time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the balance, but that would be my next surf trip.
Yeah.
And that's one I'm just like, I can't miss that one. He's such an icon, and I have so much respect for what he's done and what he's found as far as waves and what he's created. And I like to be a part of his world because it makes me feel like somebody, I'm cool because I'm in with Martin Daly.
Well, and the other thing I love all that about him too. And obviously, you know him way better than I do, but I've been on a few trips with him. But the other thing I love about him is, he is the closest thing I've ever met to what you could imagine an old school pirate
Totally.
would have been like, right? He's
Yeah.
definitely a modern day version of that.
A full modern day versions and the stories he tells and everything. It's so true to life.
Yeah. And I love to see him take off on a wave. He
I
charges,
know.
right?
And he's more and more excited about it these days. He's better shape. He loves surfing, and that's the connection we all have is we love surfing.
Yeah, I remember that famous quote from Kelly Slater. He said, "Surfing is my religion."
For sure. 100% every day. That's
So
what I think about.
when you're in the water, you're going to church, right?
100%.
Well, Keith, I can't thank you enough for your time. You are a legend. I really appreciate that you have let me and Gary into your lives and include us in your lives. And
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you having me on the show.
we're in love with Lena and in love with you. And
thanks.
And so thanks for coming on, and be legendary, my friend.
Talk to you soon, buddy.
You bet. Thanks,
Aloha.
Keith.
See you.
Aloha. There it is. What an awesome guy. Thank you again, Keith, for coming on Legends and Losers. And if you like this episode, you will probably love episode 12 with judo fighter and U.S. Olympian Colton Brown, called By Any Means Necessary. An incredible dialogue with an amazing young man. Now, given today's discussion today with Keith, we have to tip our hat today to Jack O'Neill. For those of you who don't know, Jack is the primary innovator of what today we know as the surf wetsuit. And he built an incredible company. He made a giant difference for surfers around the world, particularly those of us who want to or need to surf in colder water. And he's a category designer. Jack designed the wetsuit market category for the surf industry. And Jack passed away on June 2nd, 2017, recently, at the age of 94. And he was a inventor, an entrepreneur, surfer, category designer, and a legend in the surf community, and a legend in Santa Cruz, where I live. Jack opened his first surf shop 65 years ago. He was the category designer of the wetsuit market, as I said, and that category today is in excess of $1 billion. And it's a bummer when one of your heroes passes away. Jack's house is in a very famous location, right on the coastline here in Santa Cruz, and everybody here loves him. And as he was getting older, he would be in public less and less. But when you would see him walking around the neighborhood, I noticed something interesting. When people walk by Jack, often in Santa Cruz, what they would say is, "Thanks, Jack," because Jack's the guy that not just created a category, but he opened up surfing in a way that surfing never would have been possible without the wetsuit. And he also made a gigantic difference to the environment, to teaching kids about the ocean, and was just an amazing part of the Santa Cruz and surf world. So our prayers at Legends and Losers go out to Jack, his family, Team O'Neill, the people of Santa Cruz, and everybody in the surf community who love Jack O'Neill. Bless you, Jack, and thanks. All right. I also want to let you know I'm super glad to be doing a seminar series with our friends at NetSuite, the leader in cloud ERP. And we will be traveling around the U.S. Talking about category design and, most importantly, trying to stoke entrepreneurship. NetSuite is very, very much committed to a breakthrough for entrepreneurs around the world. And so it's a very cool thing that we're doing. And so if you want to come see me live, I'll be doing book signings at every location around the U.S. and we're going up to Toronto, Canada, And so for more information on dates and locations, go to legendsandlosers.com and click on NetSuite Tour and get your personal invitation. All right. I'd also like to do a couple shout outs to my dear friend Jay Larson with his recent name change suggestion for the show. He thinks we should change the show from Legends and Losers to Legends and Nose Pickers. I always loved that expression, nose pickers. So we'll take that under advisement, Mr. Larson. I'd like to thank Adrian Chrome from Australia for an awesome email on LinkedIn, for diving into Play Bigger. And he recently shared that he binged on Legends and Losers. And I hope it didn't make you sick. But thank you, Adrian. Also say thank you to Dr. Arlette Hirschfeld for inviting 5 of your friends to our Facebook group. And to Keiichiro Yoshida. He reached out, I believe it started on LinkedIn, and we had a great connection, and he kind of went mental, and he's written some very fantastic things on Facebook and said some wonderful things to us. So thank you so much. Also like to thank our friends at Hacker Bay, who said Legends and Losers transformed our business. Thanks, folks. Please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and or YouTube. This podcast is not free. It costs you 2 minutes to give us a legendary review. And we'd love it if you invited 5 of your friends to our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/legends and losers. And if you do that, send us an email, blackhole@legendsandlosers.com with the number 5 in the subject, and we will send you the transcript to the Bixen episode. We would also like to thank our friends at HarperCollins for the instant classic Play Bigger, How Pirates, Dreamers, and Innovators Create and Dominate Markets. Equity Directory, the invite-only network of entrepreneurs and startup talent exchanging work for equity. Our good friends at onelifefullylived.org, dream, plan, and live your best life. NetSuite, number 1 in cloud ERP. Quatro, the legendary surfboards at quatrowindsurfing.com. Of course, the legendary O'Neill Surf Company at us.o'neill.com. Our friends at kiva.org, legendary loans that change lives. The great new book from our buddy, John Vroman, Front Row Factor. Pick up a copy and get yourself fired up. And the lovely ladies of Bell Destination Weddings and Events. Make your Hawaii wedding dreams come true at belldestinationevents.com. Millionaire Mindcast, the legendary podcast from our good friend and guest, Maddie A. Snap Sports, how the action sports industry turns photographs into revenue at snapsports.com. Chi Power Arts Healing in Santa Cruz, California, and Realtor Rick White, Silicon Valley and Santa Cruz Realtor, making California dreams come true at rickwhitesells.com. Today's information is provided to you solely for informational purposes. This oddcast is produced in a studio that does contain nuts. And this oddcast is the sole property of the Legends and Losers Oddcast Network, and we sure hope that you share the shit out of it. We have to warn you, the producers of the show may have been distracted. Teach water sports. Don't forget we're on YouTube. Listen to Prince. Go ahead and pee in your wetsuit. Remember, we hated United Airlines before that was cool. And this oddcast really ties the room together. Our deepest apologies to Bill McDermott, CEO of SAP. Sorry, Bill. We just ran out of time for you. Thanks, friends. Be legendary.